Ain't doing much today. Did want to cruise on here though. Talk about some things in the world, things about life. And I wanted to open it with my dude, Nietzsche. Because, okay, let's see. My bad. Playing around with this setup a little bit. All right, let's do this. So I wanted to see what he had to say about Nietzsche.
One of the ways that I wish Nietzsche were perhaps better understood would be in his idea of the will to power. I've often heard the will to power described along these lines. Nietzsche said that all human action is about. One of the ways that I wish Nietzsche were perhaps better understood would be in his idea of the will to power. I've often heard the will to power described along these lines. Nietzsche said that all human action is about seeking power, that beneath all of our actions, there's sort of the more fundamental aim of seeking after power. There's a little problem with this, though, that it's pretty one-sided. It's not technically wrong, but it's only talking about the will to power as expressed by somebody who is weak or inept or inadequate, because if you're seeking power, it means that you don't have it. Oftentimes, what Nietzsche talks about instead is expressing power, creating things, overcoming challenges, expending rather than gathering. That's really more what he's talking about with the will to power, and that's the will to power as expressed by somebody who does have power, who is strong and vital and youthful and creative. You're only seeking if you don't have it, and really the goal is to be able to expend. So I wish will to power were more often talked about in those terms.
That's interesting. I was thinking about it when he was saying it. Where is it? Oh, so people talk about power, right? And people talk about how power is bad. But I could probably find it right here, actually. Because I've wrote this on X before. I've said it better than I'm going to say it right now. But basically, power is only bad when it does something that people don't like. Really comes down to what it is. Because everybody loves power when it's for what they want, you know? Let me see. Let me see if I can find. Oh, can't find it. Yeah, this is kind of it right here. Watch this. You see this? Say postmodernists tried to convince people that they fight against power, because it's take power down, because power bad. That they want to see power removed because power is bad. Nay, power. Nay, the strong. It's kind of what you're doing at the same time, by the way. Slave morality, absolutely. But they didn't tell you that they wanted to be the ones with the power. Animal Farm. 'Cause that's what it is, right? The people that don't have the power are always the ones naying the power. And uh, just because you're on the opposite side of the coin doesn't mean that the other side is bad just because it's not your side. Let's see what we got going on here. Can I? I'm just gonna play around with the chat a bit. Cool. Cool. I just found this dude.
What is every?
I don't know if any of y'all know this dude. Yep, there we go. I don't know if y'all know this dude. I found him though. He's got the Nietzsche podcast, which is so me. So me. So me. Let's go back. So there was another one I was looking at. It looked good too. Oh no. There's none of this. I'm gonna find it. I'll stop sharing for a second until I find it. So Alex O'Connor video. I do like me some Alex O'Connor videos. Where the hell was I just saw? I could probably go to history, right? Yeah, history. Oh, stop it. Stupid ads. It's Cruise. All right. Got it? So I think this is what he's going to go on here is Aristotelian metaphysics. I don't know if you're familiar, but
thinking a lot about like Aristotelian metaphysics. So I've been thinking a lot about like Aristotelian metaphysics. So from Aristotle, right? And when I ask people about cause and effect, like what causes particular things to occur, Aristotle famously, one of the foundational like doctrines of his metaphysics is that there are 4 kinds of causation that go into anything. Like, why is this beautiful and tasty can of Newtonic on the table? Well, it's got 4 different kinds of explanations. There is its formal cause, which is sort of the
I wonder why he divides everything up into 4. What's anything behind that? I've been on this shit lately with 3. Like 3 of anything keeps it balanced.
the shape that it takes. There's its material cause, which is the stuff that it's made out of, right? We don't think of the stuff that's made out of, strictly speaking, as a...
Hold on. I want to do a little check real quick just to make audit share audios right. Okay. And then? Okay. And then? Like 17 seconds or so. Interesting. All right. 4 kinds of reasons for anything to exist, huh? Let's see. I split some.
Cause But it's clearly part of the causal story that puts this on the table. There is the efficient cause, which is like who actually made it, right? You put this together, somebody put it in a can, I put it on the table. And finally, there is the final cause, which is what it was done for, what it's going towards, the teleological cause. In the modern era, we essentially, when we talk about causation, we just talk about the efficient cause. If I say, like, why is that on the table? And you say, well, because I put it there, question is answered. But I think that neglects a lot of really important questions about, like, the nature.
Them at the obvious answer, right? That's like the first thing you come across is the obvious answer.
If I say, like, why is that on the table? And you say, well, because I put it there, question is answered. But I think that neglects a lot of really important questions about, like, the nature of the thing itself, why it's there in that particular time slice, taking that shape with that particular form. I think we neglect that. And I think that modern science is lacking in that it's only seems to concern itself ultimately with efficient causes and maybe a little bit of the material cause too. In that, like, if you ask a scientist in a laboratory, you know, why is that shuttle, like, flying and escaping the atmosphere? They'll say, oh, because it has an escape velocity and the thrust of the rockets. But if you ask the same scientist at the pub,
well, it's like the real why versus just like because it is their thing.
They'll say because we wanted to go to the moon, and suddenly they become an Aristotelian again. And I think that the influence of these other kinds of causation isn't really there. The only other thing that came to mind is potentially the pre-Socratics. You know, I mean, and Joe already said that the sort of first philosopher, as it were, was Thales. But people might have thought when he went to say that, well, the first philosopher that people generally think of is Socrates.
Right.
If you ask somebody who was the first philosopher, they'll say Socrates. But there's, you know, Socrates didn't just spring up ex nihilo. You know, he's working in sometimes, and him and Aristotle and Plato, they're working sometimes in response to, but certainly after and contemporary with other thinkers too, who a lot of the time their ideas just, you know, because they weren't particularly popular or didn't win the war of ideas, we don't even know about. Parmenides didn't think that.
So true. So many people lost to history and all their ideas is gone.
Change could occur. In fact, you've heard of Zeno's paradoxes. So Zeno had these wonderful paradoxes of motion where, like, I can't clap my hands because first I'd have to half the distance, then half the distance, then half the distance. And you can't complete an infinite series of tasks, so I can't clap my hands. Everybody knows about Zeno's paradoxes, but do they know that the reason he came up with them is because he was following in the school of Parmenides, who believed that change was literally impossible. And these were paradoxes which were kind of supposed to demonstrate the paradoxical nature of change for that reason. Like, again, we've got the conclusion, but we haven't got the working. And
the real why.
Sometimes the working is the most interesting stuff, you know?
I definitely concur with the kind of neglect of aspects of Aristotle's thought. I mean, especially really with regards to something like Aristotle's ethics. You know, Aristotle's book, The Nicomachean Ethics, is, I would say, you know, even after Aristotle's book, The Nicomachean Ethics, is, I would say, you know, even after over 2,000 years, the most useful book of philosophy for anyone to read. I would say, you know, go on and get yourself a copy. They're great. There are some excellent translations. And the most recent Penguin one is an excellent translation. And Aristotle's Ethics is, I think, one of its real strengths is that it's incredibly realistic. So he's very, very concerned with virtues. But as opposed to, say, someone like certain Stoic thinkers and also the Cynics, Aristotle denies that virtue is sufficient for a good or flourishing life. He's very, when he, you know, he's very good at getting down to brass tacks. You know, kind of at one point during the Nicomachean Ethics, he basically says, you know, like, there is no philosophy that's going to make you happy on the rack. You know, you always need certain, like, minimal levels of your physical needs fulfilled in order to just, like, calm down the bestial part of you that recognizes that you need to eat and breathe and sleep in order to live.
It was some neurotic ass shit. So it sounds like, to remind people to get into their bodies even back then, man. Just thinking in your head all day.
And I think that, you know, and again, Aristotle has a number of incredibly, I think, still incredibly insightful ethical insights that sometimes sound obvious when you say them out loud. But we're talking before we started filming about the idea that actually,
it's so much stuff is like that. It's so slick, but by the time you say it, it's like, it's obvious because you should have known that the whole time. Reminds me of, like, the Dog Whisperer. Have you ever seen the Dog Whisperer? man, after you hear the stuff he says, you're like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. But it's just, it eludes. It eludes.
Sometimes very, very obvious things bear repeating because we just forget them very, very easily. I mean, about, this is, again, a point that Tolstoy made where...
Oh, you know what I can do right here? Watch this. Because he said it. He said it. Where's my favorites? There we go. Boom. How do I watch this? It's talking about how we lose it all, right? This guy right here. Boom. Everything has already been said, but since nobody was listening, we have to start again. Because you have a great number of people who aren't listening, and even the people that are, over time, loses it. Just like these guys are talking about. These old heads had all these ideas, but he's right. Most people think Socrates is the original. Like he said, pre-Socratic. I mean, people out there have actually looked into pre-Socratic stuff, you know? It's cool, though. It sucks. Reminds me of Zeno, you know? Everybody thinks of Stoics. They never think of him.
That sounds trite, but have we ever got round to doing that? And he argues that we haven't, and I probably concur. And one of Aristotle's loving your... this is, again, a point that Tolstoy made where he talked about that idea of loving your neighbor as yourself. And Tolstoy basically says, yeah, like, that sounds trite, but have we ever got round to doing that? And he argues that we haven't, and I probably concur. And one of Aristotle's ideas here is...
It's like Philly is the city of brotherly love. But it's like, from when? Because,
is I should focus on two. One of them is the idea of a golden mean. So his idea that virtue lies between the poles of two vices. You know, being brave is in between being cowardly and being reckless.
Balance. That checks. Two poles is how he sees it, though. That's interesting. Yeah.
Being generous is in between being, profligate and being miserly. And, he has, and I think that's a very useful framework. It sounds, almost like common sense when you...
Yeah, just like when it says balance. It sounds trite. It sounds lame. It sounds normal. But like he says, who's actually doing the balance?
Said out loud, but actually attempting to think in these terms can be incredibly useful. And the other thing that Aristotle that I'm so bullish on, with regards to Aristotle, is he's got an incredibly well worked out theory of friendship. It's in two books, book 8 and 9 of the Nicomachean Ethics, and it's some of the best writing on friendship I think there's ever been. Aristotle, in some ways, following in the footsteps of
well, these are the aristocrats. Probably were keen on being a good friend to others, although he was probably unique in it still. But
Base 44 super agents. The next thing you can't live without.
Humbug.
No setup. Just say hello.
Some previous thinkers like Epicurus was a very, very big fan of friendship. Actually, I'm getting my timelines confused there. But either way, Aristotle is incredibly, he thinks that having a group of friends and moreover, friends that you're, that are friendships of virtue.
I would say I kind of agree with that. Like friendships, your friends, that's maybe the most important thing in your life, because you have your family or whatever, or you don't have family, but because they say friends are the family that you get to choose in life,
So friends that you're not just there because you enjoy their company. You're not just there because they have something that you want and you're trying to get at, in the way that someone might schmooze up to their boss, or just you're friends with somebody but simply because you enjoy their company. These are friends who are sort of getting together in order to make one another more virtuous. And moreover,
the iron sharpens iron. Yeah, that's. I mean, anybody with a growth mindset, isn't that what you're trying to do?
Hold like duties and loyalties to one another. You know, Aristotle thinks that these are enormously contributive factors to your life. You owe them things. You know, this is I think can be a real antidote to the sort of, you know, nobody owes anyone anything anymore. You know, that kind of that approach to life, which I think is sort of can be very unhelpfully individualistic. And yeah, I think that's
Nobody owes anybody anything. You think people owe people things? That's kind of crazy.
sometimes stepping into the footsteps of an ancient thinker like Aristotle is one way to.
I think it's a measure right there of the just collective versus the individual, huh?
To sort of, you know, get a bit of distance from the way that we might currently live. And I think that books 8 and 9 of the Nicomachean Ethics, where he so clearly thinks, you know, groups of friends, this is, you know, halfway to the good life, effectively, is an insight that we could really use. You know, everyone thinks friendship is important, right? It's very easy to say, but like culturally, we place significantly less emphasis on friendship than at almost any other point in Western history.
It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. I think it's pretty true, though.
This is like, you know, think about I don't know if you've, you know, ever read through sort of like letters from the World Wars or from like the Crimean Wars or you know, even the Napoleonic Wars. These are people writing to their friends, and the way that they talk about their friends is amazing. It's sort
more
of
passionate
and sort of vulnerable, and more. It's just very clear that friendship.
Well, they had a lot less stigmas, I think, about shit then. I don't know, but I think so.
Is a huge part of the way that they organize their lives. You know, like we, you know, the kind of standard way of, I suppose, of organizing your adult life now is to organize it around a romantic partner. And I think there's an awful lot to be said for romance. I just think that there's also an awful lot to be said for friendship, and it very much gets overshadowed.
Dude, who hasn't thought about that for half their life? Because when you're younger, you just have friends. And then you start to get the romantic involvement thing, and it's like, well, now it's changed. And it's like, well, because you can kind of compare maybe what's better, what's worse. Can both, can none? I don't know.
Like, when was the last time, or if we were to compare the amount of great films that are about, you know, two people getting together versus two great friends. I mean, you know, films about two great friends, what, like Bill and Ted? You know,
Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
Harold and Kumar Got the Munchies. You know, these are, I mean,
these are a lot of duos, right? A lot of these movies. Starsky and Hutch came to mind.
Films all, but you know, it's completely outmoded. And I think you know, that's why I'm very bullish on Aristotle. Books 8 and 9 of the Nicomachean Ethics.
Yeah, I wonder what it is about Stoicism. I guess just very good PR and branding kind of suits the modern world, a time when people are a little bit lost.
What do you mean? Because it's a calm. It's a calm, or its appearance of calm anyway. But it's a calm. And the whole world always wants more calm because nobody's calm.
They're unsure.
Yeah, it's
unsure, maybe. Yeah.
I've never been super attracted to it on that level. It's really popular as I guess kind of a means of consolation and way of sort of structuring your life. But I sort of, I don't know. I guess people who are suffering are always looking for alleviation from that suffering, and traditionally it's come with a lot of metaphysical baggage, be that religious or be it not. And I suppose it offers people a way of seemingly achieving that without the metaphysical baggage.
Dang. This is a dope video, though, huh? And a question about your friendships compared to people of old. That's a fact. That is a fact. All right, that was dope. Let's find some other shit going on. Want to see Jordan Peterson tear apart Superman, apparently? The fatal flaw of Superman. I'm down. I don't know. 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 Let's go. This is old school Jordan. Dang. Still teaching us stuff here. No, yeah. All right. Let me get you over there. Get you over there. Boom. Cool.
There's this old story in King Arthur where the knights go off to look for the Holy Grail, which is either the cup that Christ drank out of at the Last Supper or the cup into which the blood that gushed from his side was poured when he was crucified. The stories vary, but it's basically a holy object like the phoenix in some sense that's a representation of transformation. So it's an ideal, and so King Arthur's knights.
What? I just turned cup into transformation. Guess you're gonna drink from the cup. That's good. Okay. Phoenix is okay. Whatever. Okay. I guess I see it.
Who sit at a round table because they're all roughly equal, go off to find the most valuable thing, and where do you look for the most valuable thing when you don't know where it is? Well, each of the knights looks at the forest surrounding the castle and enters the forest at the point that looks darkest to him. And that's a good thing to understand.
Well, is this like the takes a criminal to catch a criminal? Like if you're gonna say like if I was evil or whatever, or the thing that you're looking for, where would I be hiding?
Because the gateway to wisdom and the gateway to the development of personality, which is exactly the same thing, is precisely through the portal that you do not want to climb through. And the reason for that's actually quite technical. This is a Jungian presupposition too, is that, well, there's a bunch of things about you that are underdeveloped, and a lot of those things are because there's things you've avoided looking at because you don't want to look at them, and there's parts of you you've avoided developing because it's hard for you to develop those parts. And so it's by virtual necessity that what you need is where you don't want to look, because that's where you've kept it. And so, and that's why there's, an idiosyncratic element.
So basically, this is your intuition knows the thing, even if you want to deny the thing. Tell me that's not God.
Of it for everyone. Your particular place of enlightenment and terror is not going to be the same as yours, except that they're both places of enlightenment and terror. So they're...
At this point, you're probably not avoiding...
Everybody's kind of got their own standard.
Therapy, right? Because you've become...
What's what?
Equivalent at one level of analysis and different at another. So anyways, back to fiction and what it does. It distills truth, and it produces characters that are composites. And
fiction, yeah, I guess, yeah. Fiction is the mirror of the truth.
The more they become composites, the more they approximate a mythological character.
Mythological meaning like what? Like believable? So it's like somewhat rooted, makes it believable in reality, right?
And so they become more and more universally true and more approximating religious deities. But the problem with that is they become more and more distant from individual experience. And so with literature, there's this very tight line where you need to make the character more than merely human, but not so much of a god that
a demigod.
One of the things that happened to Superman in the 1980s, Superman started out, he's got a heavenly set of parents, by the way, and an earthly set of parents, and he's an orphan like Harry Potter. Very common theme is that when Superman first emerged, he could only jump over buildings, and maybe he could stop a locomotive. But by the time the 1980s rolled around, like he could juggle planets and, swallow hydrogen bombs, and, he could do anything. Well, people stopped buying the Superman comics because how interesting is that? It's like...
So the fun of it is proportionate to the realism of it, even if it's not real.
Something horrible happens and Superman deals with it. And something else horrible happens and Superman deals with it. And it's like, that's dull. He turned
Yeah, yeah, right. No struggle. Like everything's just easy. Yeah.
Into such an archetype, he was
Oh, that's kind of his point, I guess, isn't it? It's like he's saying that it's so easy. Like what the struggle is the thing. The struggle is embrace the suck.
basically the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God. And that's no fun. It's like God wins, and then God wins again, and then again God wins, and you know. So then they had to weaken him in different ways with kryptonite, you know. So green kryptonite kind of made him sick, and red kryptonite, I think, kind of mutated him, if I remember correctly. And anyways, they had to introduce flaws into his character so that there could be some damn plot, and that's something to think about, you know. There's a deep
Yeah, he's right though. My bad. But he's right. Without struggle, there is no plot, is there? Because everything's just the same as ever. I'm gonna let him run, but I got a photo I'm gonna show you with this.
existential lesson in that your being is limited and flawed and fragile. You're like the genie, which is genius in the little tiny.
Look at this one. That's it. That's it. That's exactly what he's talking about. As far as there's no plot, there's no story, there's no plot, there's but this is the very thing that people complain about all the time, is having to do the things, right? All right, let's get back to, my bad, switch that shit around.
In the little tiny lamp, you know, this immense potential, but constrained in this tiny little living space, as Robin Williams said when he played the genie in Aladdin. But the fact that you have limitations means that the plot of your life is the overcoming of those limitations, and that if you didn't have limitations, well, there wouldn't be a plot, and maybe there would be no life. And so that's part of the reason why perhaps you have.
I mean, life is a cycle, right? In order to live, it means you're gonna die. I actually had a good post earlier on X about that. Let's see if I can find it while you watch.
To accept the fact that you're flawed and insufficient, and live with it and consider it a precondition for being. It's at least a reasonable idea. So anyways, one of the main characters is the country, the known, the explored territory. We went over that a bit, and it always has two elements. I mean, your country is
watch this. Can you see that? Looks a little small here. I don't know if I can. Is that a thing? I don't know. It says life is a terminal condition. It's true. It's like, in order to be born, it means you're gonna die. Like it means you're in a cycle, because everything goes in cycles, right? Even the damn sun goes in a cycle.
Your greatest friend and your worst enemy, you know, because it squashes you into conformity and demands that. I mean, your country is your greatest friend and your worst enemy, you know, because it squashes you into conformity and demands that you act in a certain manner, and reduces your individuality to that element that's tolerated by everyone else. And it constrains your potential in a single direction. And so it's really tyrannical, but at the same time, it provides you with a place to be and all of the benefits that have accrued as a result of the actions of your ancestors and all the other people that you're associated with. So there's the good tyrant, or the bad tyrant, and the good king.
Wow, benevolence and malevolence, right?
And those are archetypal figures, and that's because they're always true, and they're always true simultaneously, you know, which is partly why
the opposing forces always, right?
I object to the notion of the patriarchy, because it's a it's the what do you call that? It's the apprehension of a mythological trope, which is that of the evil tyrant, without any appreciation for the fact that the archetype actually has two parts, and the other part is the wise king. And you can tell an evil tyrant story about culture, no problem.
So he's saying don't do patriarchy because there's two sides, two directions it could go. That's kind of dumb, because there's two directions anything could go. I say that, I think I'm kind of calling myself a pro-patriarchist anymore. That's kind of where I'm at.
But it's one-sided, and that's very dangerous, because
how's it one-sided? See, this is confusing. I hate when people do this. They say it back and forth because it can go two directions. It's not worth doing. The wise king, the philosopher king, this is the way.
you don't want to forget all the good things that you have while you're criticizing all the ways that things are in error. That's a lack of gratitude, and it's a lack of wisdom, and it's
yeah, don't give up what you got, right? Don't give up bird in the hand for two in the bush.
It's founded in resentment, and it's,
well, I think it's if you take action, because if you're just kind of thinking about these things, whatever, but if you act on them, I think that's where he's saying that you're wise, if you can not act.
It's very dangerous, both personally and socially. I told you that Captain Hook is a tyrant because he's got this crocodile chasing him, and the crocodile has a clock in its stomach, and that's death. It's like, obviously, right? Tick, 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 tick. And it's a crocodile, and it's under the water, and it's already got a taste of him. So he's being chased around by death, and that makes him terrified and resentful.
I never thought about that part of that he had a taste of him. Because, like, it does somewhat feel like that, doesn't it? Like, death will get a taste of you. And eventually you're going to meet him or meet it, whatever.
And cruel and bitter, and so he's a tyrant. And he wants to wreak havoc everywhere. And then Peter Pan, of course, looks at Captain Hook and thinks, why the hell should I grow up and to be a tyrant and sacrifice all the potential of childhood? And
but it's kind of what he just said, right? He's not a patriarchist. It's kind of like, why should we do that when this could happen? A Hook could happen.
The answer to that is the potential sacrifices itself if you don't utilize it as you mature, and you just end up a 40-year-old lost boy, which is a horrifying thing to behold. It's almost...
well, yeah. That could cause a lot of regret in someone if they have opportunities their whole life and then don't do the opportunities and then look back like, you have the gift of life. What are you going to do with it?
Almost as if you're the corpse of a child, the living corpse of a child, because who the hell wants a 6-year-old, 40-year-old? You're a little on the stale side by that point and not the world's happiest individual. So, you know, your potential is going to disappear because you age anyways, and so you might as well shape that potential in a particular direction.
Your potential is going to fade as you age. In ways.
And at least become something, no matter how limited, rather than nothing. So.
I'm going to find something. Watch this.
You know, Peter Pan, that's a great story. It's a great mythological story. So.
The one who dies with the most toys wins.
Look at this amazing demonstration.
Well, so let's talk about tyrants. Well, not only are they mythological figures, but they exist and they tend to be deified. I mean, Stalin was, for all intents and purposes, God the Father in Soviet Russia, although he was pretty much only the worst elements of Old Testament God, who was, you know, constantly smiting people and and wiping out populations and doing all sorts of things that seem to be quite nasty. But nonetheless, you know, people worshipped him in many ways, and he's a representation of just exactly what goes wrong when things really go wrong, when people stop paying attention and when they all lie. Because one of the things that characterized the communist state was that no one ever got to say anything they actually believed, ever. And that was partly because one out of
the tyrant, the self-policing of the people, right? It's the PC, but like with a heavy hammer PC. Damn, that's tough. That's tough.
3 people was an informer, which meant if you had a family of 6 people, 2 of them were informing on the government about you, and that included your own children.
2 out of 6. Including your own children. Dude. I think I saw something earlier said Machiavelli said adversity is the best test of allegiance. I think that's right.
And if you were an informer, you were often amply rewarded by the state, so that if you
get monetary reward or whatever reward. Man, people respond to incentives, dude. And the saddest of ways sometimes.
You lived in an overcrowded apartment building with 3 families in the same flat, and you informed on, you know, the woman down the hall that you didn't like, she got shipped off to the old concentration camp, and you
he's going in right here. But I did want to show this, right? Are we on there? Yep. All right. All right, let's start with the line. Because I say this because it's talking about regret in life and things. Nietzsche line says, one has to take a somewhat bold and dangerous line with this existence, especially as, whatever happens, we are bound to lose it. That's the only guarantee in life. I said, damn, when somebody just gets you, did you come here to live or to not die? Because one of these is inevitable. There's all Seneca line through where this you are scared of dying, and tell me, is the kind of life you lead really any different than being dead? Not everybody, what do you say? Everybody is born, not everybody lives. Something like that. Think about it.
got her apartment. And so that was a lovely society, and it only killed about 30 million people between 1919 and 1959. So that's what happens when the archetypal structure gets tilted badly, when people forget that they have a responsibility to fulfill as citizens, as awake citizens who are capable of stating the truth, and the archetype shifts. So there's nothing.
So you're awake citizens capable of telling the truth, and you're pretty much obligated to do it, because if you don't, everything's guaranteed to get worse. Don't let people run around telling all these lies, man.
Left of the great father except the tyrant, and let's not have that happen. I mean, the one on the right is really interesting, because consciously or unconsciously, you know, there's Stellan surrounded by what is, for all intents and purposes, fire. You know, he looks like Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty when she shows up at Aurora's christening. You know, she puts her arms up in the air and green fire surrounds her. It's like he's surrounded by fire, and there's Lenin above him, who's like king of the fiery realm, and that's for sure. So I mean, all the terrors that happened in the Soviet Union didn't start under Stalin, they started under Lenin, and Stalin was definitely Lenin's legitimate son, let's put it that way.
Damn. All right, let me go to my stuff a little bit. 'Cause there is stuff that I've been saving. Hold on, give me 1 second, guys. Okay, these are, yeah, I like all these. I could probably just roll on with these. All right, let's do this. There we go. Harsh truth about money. Oh, my bad. Harsh truth about money. Let's go.
It's just, it's me. It's not. 16th. I need 74. We just react. We make a lot of money if we get it right. And we get left by the side of the road if we get it wrong. And there have always been and there always will be the same percentage of winners and losers, happy fucks and sad sacks, fat cats and starving dogs in this world.
Well, he said the same number, huh? The same number of winners and losers forever. That's a weird idea. They did that with the dating, right? With this mating selection and dating. Say like 80% of men are invisible to women. Like 80% of the women are chasing after like the top 10% of men. I think those are, yeah, that fits the bill, but I don't know about money. It kind of goes up and down. That's a weird one. Same number, well, he said same number of winners and losers. There's no way you could know. There's no way you could know. It's a weird thing to throw out, guy. Testosterone myth? All right. I can't remember this dude's name.
Testosterone doesn't make you aggressive. Here's what it actually does.
Ah. This is a really good video. This has pretty fucking big implications if he's right, though. I do think he's right. And this goes back to what I said a second ago. People respond to incentives, right?
Take 5 male rhesus monkeys, put them in a group, let them form a dominance hierarchy. Now take C and inject C with testosterone. So now does C get involved in more fights? Absolutely. Is C suddenly challenging A and B and rising in the hot? Absolutely not. What happens instead is C becomes a total nightmare to D and E. When your status is being challenged, testosterone makes you do whatever you need to do to maintain status. You can have an economic game where people get status by making generous offers and give people testosterone, and they become more generous in the game. In other words, if you shot up a whole bunch of Buddhist monks with testosterone, they would run amok doing random acts of kindness all over the place. The trouble isn't that testosterone makes us aggressive. The trouble is
the reward system.
That we reward aggression with status.
Somebody will say, I'm a utilitarian.
How do I get this autoplay off? I am not liking that. How do we fix that shit? Yeah, I do not like that autoplay. It might be one of my main settings. Oh, let me mess around. But dude, yeah. So testosterone isn't as much about aggression as it is status seeking, which can really check out. I don't think this applies to people who are roided out though. How many of those are walking around today? More than care to admit, I bet. How do I find? May have to deal with me in this right now. Here we go. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Oh man, where is the settings in the stupid ass player? All right. I won't mess with it right now. But yeah, so the responding to incentives thing, right? People respond to incentives. Just like the Stasi state thing we pointed out a few minutes ago, right? Get your incentive structures right, and things will start to turn around. It's like when I say, if you pay more people, if you pay people, some people, right? If you pay some people to not work, it makes me think of COVID, unemployment, right? Don't be surprised if you have more people not working. It seems simple, but it could probably say it's messed up on purpose. The incentive structures, you know. People like to blame money, but there was something before money. Money wasn't always a thing. Before money, you could blame resources. Whoever had the most pelts might be the biggest guy in town or whatever. There was always something. People have always been doing this. All right, let's play a couple more. How long have we been going there? Go. We're almost there. Back to Alex. Oh goodness. This is gonna break some brains. Hey, that's what I do. I'm not gonna do it actually this time. I'm gonna let Alex do it. Because I can't really disagree with him. I don't know if he's gonna lay out what he believes, but he's gonna lay out what this is here. There's going to be a lot of pushback internally if you were to actually think about this initially. But hear him out.
Somebody will say, I'm a utilitarian. I believe that we should maximize pleasure. And then somebody comes across to them and says, what about this organ transplant situation? Would it be right to take an innocent person and kill them to take 5 of their organs and donate them to 5 patients who need an organ transplant? And it works as an objection. Why? Why does that work as an objection to utilitarianism? Because killing an innocent person just sort of feels wrong? Who cares? If you've got this ethical theory, the whole point of having the theory is that we can...
Is to run it through its extremes to see if it stands. Yes.
Work out things that are right and wrong without having to rely on our feelings. No, we have our ethics.
Right and wrong. Like, where does this go? That's why I said extremes. But it's like, where does this go when you play this down the road, right?
Ethical theory. This is going to give us a sort of mathematical way of really working out what's the right thing to do. I mean, imagine if we typed into a calculator a sum and we didn't like the answer. And instead of going, gosh, I guess we were wrong, we said, oh no, let's change the calculator. What's the point of having a calculator?
Isn't this the whole, the DEI thing, especially, right? Man.
And instead of going,
like, we saw reality, but people's feelings didn't like the answer of how reality is. So there must be something wrong with reality. We have to fix it.
Going, gosh, I guess we were wrong. We said, oh no, let's change the calculator. What's the point in having a calculator if the moment it spits out something you don't like, you're going to change how the calculator works? That's what people do with ethics. They come up with an ethical theory and they test it against just counterexamples which just work on intuition, just make you go, ooh, I don't like that. That to me says a lot about what's real.
I don't think that's on intuition, but I do think that's like an emotional reflex that people do. It's just like, what's okay and what isn't okay is largely just what you feel about it, you know? It's a slippery slope. And I have answers, but you have to feel them out for yourself.
Really going on in ethics, that we're just balancing what we sort of emotionally feel lines up with how we want the world to look.
Adults don't exist.
So true.
Steve Jobs.
So true. With how just get your emotions to line up with the world, and they just want, oh my God, what a pompous thing to think, is that you see the way the world works and then you think, nay, that's just, how do you reject reality? It's so bizarre to me. Hubris a man thing? Just impose your crap? All right, what do we got? We got Chris. I've said this to people. Like his opener here is adults don't exist. Yeah, there are no adults in some way. It's just everybody's a grown child.
Adults don't exist. Steve Jobs delayed 9 months of medical treatment of pancreatic cancer to try a carrot juice diet and acupuncture. Mozart overspent his income, lived miserably in mountains of debt, and regularly wrote letters to friends begging for money.
Yeah, Mozart was poor.
Friedrich Nietzsche lost his virginity in a brothel and caught syphilis. He only saw his work sell 300 copies in his lifetime. Martin Luther.
300 copies. I don't even know if y'all know who Nietzsche is, but if you do, for like how circulated he is now, 300 copies in his lifetime is absolutely insane.
The king had extramarital affairs with over 40 different women, including spending his last night alive with 2 women and physically attacking another.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard Thomas Sowell, the GOAT, but he said the thing with Martin Luther is if he actually ran on the content of his character, he would have been primaried. If you actually applied his shit to him, he wouldn't have a job, you know?
Isaac Newton spent 30 years of his life writing 1 million words on the pseudoscience of alchemy, hidden for years by his heirs because they were too embarrassed to publish it.
Yeah, Isaac Newton said he was naysaying alchemy. It's like, this is baloney. How many? 10,000?
Physically attacking another. Isaac Newton spent 30 years of his life writing 1 million words.
1 million words? Oh my God. He had a 1,000,000-word project that was wrong. Wow. Well, if you ever feel like you've wasted time, you could take that and just be like, well, I did not do that.
On the pseudoscience of alchemy, hidden for years by his heirs because they were too embarrassed to publish it. Don't put any adult on a pedestal, kill your gurus, or a more useful belief, the adults aren't going to save you. They don't even exist.
That's a good one, though. The adults don't exist. I don't know. When you're little, you think it is, right? And maybe the times changed. Maybe 30, 40 years ago or whatever, maybe there was still adults. Adults, as he says. I've heard Rogan mention him as he runs into people as a baby. That'll kill your guru. You see him as a baby. But he's got something right. Don't put anybody too high on a pedestal, you know, because they are flawed, just like everybody. It's just in what ways.
I love that.
What were they? So, gun to my head, I think they were used to generate.
The craziest theory about pyramids explained. We got the Y-Files guy, AJ, I think his name is. I don't think this is that crazy. I think there's a couple parts of this that he twists on that don't jive too well with. But overall, I think he basically explains where the current understanding is largely. Well, yeah.
What were they? So, gun to my head, I think they were used to generate energy. There's been research that certain wavelengths broadcast at the Great Pyramid will amplify that electromagnetic energy. But the pyramid power plant theory is a lot like Tesla's technology. The Giza Plateau, there is an aquifer under there. That water would create this resonant frequency, and they found
I think they call it hydrostatic electricity. I think they call it.
Found copper rods that go down there. Those would create.
I don't know if they're copper rods, by the way. They know that something is down there, but I don't know if they know they're copper rods.
It's sound, F-sharp chord specifically. Like when you blow across a bottle, it goes, boom. It's called the Helmholtz resonator. This chamber is built out of rose granite, densely made of quartz. And when you compress quartz, it creates electricity. It's called piezoelectricity. So how do we get it out? The interior is made out of a certain type of limestone. And
all about the limestone.
That's called a dielectric. And if you had a gold capstone on top, you can force that energy up through the capstone.
They could channel it through it.
Up into the ionosphere. And that's what Nikola Tesla was trying to do. What did they do with it? My guess is the Egyptians just found it. It's supposed to be the tomb for Khufu, but no mummy's ever been found.
Most martial arts.
That's a really good point. No mummies have ever been found. So anybody wants to call it a tomb, blow it out your ass. But yeah. That's one of my things, actually. He hit on right there. He said, I think the Egyptians just found it. Absolutely, the Egyptians just found it. They were retarded compared to the people who made the stuff. Now, as to who is tricky. Because my best guess is the people of Kemet is all I have to look at. Because those are the people that would have came before them that we know about. Or it could be some group that we don't even know about yet. Damn, I did a little bit. I'll probably jump off. You can find me on X, do all the things, like it, comment, talk to me. See you.